Good morning, sweet math peeps. Hope you're doing okay. Today's lesson is going to be super short, really not new information, but maybe presented a little bit differently. And I don't want anything to take you by surprise, but not very difficult with the computation. So hopefully you'll like it. Okay, here we go. So at the bottom of this graph, they give you the function for h of x and j of x, okay? So h of x, as you can see, is a function within a function, okay? Well, if it's a function within a function, just one x, not two, it's not a product rule. This would be a product rule, two x's, okay? This guy is a chain rule if they ask me to find the derivative of h. So for this question, finding the derivative at -3, you're going to want to first find a rule for the derivative, okay? So if h of x is defined to be a function within a function, then its derivative is the chain rule. Derivative of the outside, leave the inside the same, times derivative of the inside. That is literally the definition of the chain rule that you wrote on day one when you learned it. Now to find h prime of -3, just change all these x's into -3's. So h prime of -3 would be f prime of g of -3 times g prime of -3. Okay, so now we need to go to the graph. To find g of -3, that doesn't have a derivative symbol, so that's just the height at -3. So at -3, right here, we go down to the g graph, which would be here, and that's -4. So now I'm going to replace this g of -3. Oops, sorry about that. Replace this g of -3 with its value, -4. Bring down the parentheses, bring down my f prime symbol, and then very separately times g prime of -3. Okay, now we have two derivatives. I now need to find f prime of -4, g prime of -3, separate derivatives, separate values, and then multiply them together. Okay, so we're going to go to -4 on the f graph. All right, on the f graph, -4, 1, 2, 3, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, -4 on the f graph, that would be right there, okay? But they want the derivative there because of this symbol. So where do I find the derivative on the f graph? What's another word for derivative? Slope. And if the graph is a straight line, then the slope is an exact answer, not an estimate. If the graph was curvy, then I'd have to draw a tangent to estimate the slope, and it would be an estimate. But if it's a straight line, then you just have to find any 2 points on that line and figure out the slope there. So I'm now looking for the slope of f at -4. So find any 2 points that you can. The point I have is convenient, and I need another point. This guy would work, but there's also another one up here. There's another one down here, whatever. And calculate the slope. And be careful when you do it. It's a negative downhill line, and it's down to right 1. Okay, be careful when you calculate that. This will be on your next test. So that's a slope of -2, and therefore, that's the value of my derivative of f at -4. Now let's do the same thing for g. Find the slope of the g graph at -3. Okay, so where would you go for that? Go to my g graph at -3, which would be right here. And because it says derivative, calculate the slope there. So using any 2 points, doesn't matter which two, I'd say that is a clear slope of up 1/2. Positive, double check, uphill means positive. So we're going to multiply by a positive 1/2. And then just multiply across. -2 times 1/2 is the final answer of -1. Okay, so now let's reflect back over that, okay? Here are the things you need to be careful of. If I just say g of negative 3, that's the height at negative 3. But if you need g prime of negative 3, that's the slope at negative 3. Be careful to make sure you know whether it is a chain rule, product rule, quotient rule, whatever it is. This is a chain rule because there's only one x, and it's a function within a function, not a function times another function. Okay? Why don't you find j prime of negative 2 by using this j equation? Hit pause and give that one a shot. Okay, hopefully you did well. So first, here's the j equation, and now I need to find the derivative equation first. J prime of x would be derivative of the outside, leave the inside the same, times derivative of the inside. Now, just a warning, make sure you do all of this separate from this. A common mistake is to accidentally multiply this times this and then do the derivative, which would be wrong, okay? You may even want to put big old brackets around them separate to make sure you understand you're doing all of this and all of this separately and then multiplying those answers, okay? Okay, so now replace all of the x's with 2's. So j prime of 2 would be g prime of f of 2. Big old brackets just to be safe. And f prime of 2. Another bracket. You don't need them, but they will help you. Okay, so now I have to find, in the middle we have f of 2 first. That's the height at 2 on the f graph. So on the f graph, the height at 2 would be right there. That's 3. So I now have g prime of 3. I'm going to take that answer, whatever it is, and multiply it by this answer, whatever it is. Okay, now I'm looking for g prime of 3. That is the slope of g at 3. Okay, so g prime of 3. On the g graph at 3, that would be here. Now I need to find the slope. So I need another point. I like this guy. Okay, it's negative because it's downhill, so I know I have a negative answer. And it appears, ooh, you know what? I don't like the point I had. I'm going to use another one. I like this point over here better because the point at 3 is kind of an estimate. So I want to use 2 clean points. Oh, I had another one. I could have used this one. Okay, so I go down 1, right 2, which would be a negative 1/2. Or I could have also said I go down 2, right 4. Same answer. Okay, so that one's negative 1/2. Use any 2 points to get the slope. It doesn't matter. Now we're going to find this one. This will be the slope of f at 2. So on the f graph at 2, that is this point that I already have. And I just need to find the slope there. So I can use this point. I can use a whole bunch of points. And it appears that that slope, first of all, it is positive. And it appears to be up 1, right 1, nice clean cut 1. Okay? So now multiply those 2 answers, easy peasy. Final answer should have been negative 1/2. Okay? How'd you do? Hopefully you're hanging in there. Okay, one quick question though. What if I asked you somewhere in the middle of all this work, what if you needed the derivative instead of like f prime of 2? What if it was like f prime of negative 2? Okay, that would be what is the slope right here. Do you remember what that is? Okay, remember at a sharp point, that would be undefined. So if in the middle of all this work, if it ended up that you had an answer that was undefined, your whole entire answer would turn into undefined. Okay? All right, so the next 2 examples are going to be more of the same. Just be careful to figure out from the start whether you have a chain rule or a product rule. Okay? So here we go. This one, hopefully you can see, is a clear-cut product rule. So first, write your product rule. If I have 2 separate factors, I have f of x and g of x. Find their two derivatives, f prime, g prime. Okay? Then h prime of x would be crisscross, and I get f of x, g prime of x, plus g of x, f prime of x. Now, you're welcome to cheat and instead of x's, change all those x's to -3 at the same time if you wanted to, okay? Now I got to go through and change all my x's into -3's, okay? So it's going to be f of -3, g prime of -3, g of -3, and f prime of -3, okay? So remember, if it doesn't have a derivative symbol, then you're looking at the height there. If it has a derivative symbol, you're looking at the slope there, okay? So f of -3 would be the height at -3 on the f graph. 1, 2, 3, that's right there. So, okay, oops. Okay, so f of -3 would be the height here, which is 1. You don't really have to write that. Now I'm going to do g prime of -3, which is the slope of g at -3. That would be the slope right there. Find another point. That's up 1 and over 2. That's 1/2. Okay. Next, I've got g of -3. So that's the height of g at -3. So g of -3 would be the height here, which is -4. And now I need this guy, which would be the slope of f at -3. Okay, f at -3 is here, and I need the slope there. Pick 2 points, and that is down 2 over 1. Be careful with your positive and negative slope. Downhill is a negative. And now just do your math. So this is 1/2 plus 8, and I don't care if you write 8.5 or 17/2 or 8.5. They're all the same. Who cares? Okay? Main idea is recognizing at the very start that this one is a product rule, so you had to do this, not a chain rule. And clearly you'd have to do the same with a quotient rule and all the rest. Okay? So I think you see where this is going. All right. How about this one? That's a little weird. Okay, this one looks intimidating, because what the heck, I hate it when they put E and LNs and all those crazy things into my math, but really it's not intimidating. You can do this. Don't let them freak you out with the crazy looking problems. Okay, clearly this is a quotient rule, so find your derivative rule first. Find h prime of x, okay? You know you're going to need the derivative of the top and the derivative of the bottom. Ask yourself, can you find those two derivatives easily? Maybe do those derivatives first if you need to. Okay, so the derivative of the top, when I need that, the derivative of 3e to the 2x, don't be intimidated. You know how to do that. It's 3e to the 2x times the derivative of 2x, so times 2. So it's just 6e to the 2x. Don't let them freak you out, okay? So let's go back to our quotient rule from the top. Low is g of x. D high is what we found over here. 6e to the 2x minus high 3e to the 2x. D